Okay, so now we are ready to talk about doing something reasonable when we hit the edge of the screen here. So we don't want to just go off into infinity with Code Sculptor. We want to hit the edge. All right. So let's think about this for a second. If we right now we're adding 2 to x each time and 1 to y each time, and it's the xy position where we place the circle. So if we added 0 to both of these each time, we wouldn't go anywhere, right? Because we're not changing the x and the y. So one thing we could do, let's say we wanted to stop it when we hit the edge. We'll try that first because that's kind of simple. What we could do is we could have variables here that stand for the change in x. So dx is common terminology for change in x when you have a x coordinate, and dy for change in y. Okay, so we could start that out like that, right? And then this here is going to be dx and dy. Okay, so now that's working. And what we could do is we could say, well, when we hit the edge, we'll change dx and dy to be 0, and then this update won't have any effect, basically, right? So what we could do is we could say, let's make a helper function that tells us if we're at the edge of the world or not. So let's say, so what are the edges we could hit? Well, we could hit the left, right? So that would happen if, let's say that happens if x is less than 0. Or because I'm thinking now in terms of, in this term, so I'm thinking I'm hitting the left wall if x is 0 here, right? And then the right wall would be, if I'm hitting at the max x, which would be the width of the canvas, right? So I could say def at right return, this is if x is greater than the canvas width, right? And then I could say def at top return, now this would be if the y, remember that we're using this coordinate system, so if the y is less than 0, then we're at the top. And def at bottom, oops, that's going to be if y is down here at the max, which is the canvas height. So if y is greater than the canvas height. So notice what I'm returning here. This greater than comparison operator is going to compare x and y, and it's going to return true or false, depending if x is bigger than the canvas width, it'll be return true, otherwise it'll return false. Okay, so that's the same idea with all of these guys. Let's see now. So what I want to do then is let's see. What I want to do is check here, right, with this update, and then basically if at left I'm going to set my dx to 0. So now what I have to do is I have to make sure that dx and dy are globals also, right? Because I'm changing the values of dx and dy here. So so dx is going to be 0, if at right, again, dx is going to be 0. I'm not going to be changing the x. I can still change the y if I wanted to, right? I could let it run along the edge until it hits the top or the bottom, so I might just do that. If at top, then I'll let the change in y be 0, and if at bottom, again, I'll make the change in y be 0. So now what I'm expecting is if I've hit the left edge, then x is going to change by 0 every time. So x is not going to change. Y will keep changing by whatever y is until I hit the top or the bottom. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Yep, there it is. Now you see it's the x and the y position of the circle is the center of the circle. So, you know, we could do some fudging around with radius, but what I really want to do is, rather than just having it stop, I'd like for it to bounce off the wall. So what we could do for that is think about, well, what if we hit the left side of the wall, then we want x, this, if we're going this way, then that means the change in x is negative, right? Because x is getting smaller. So if we hit this wall, we want the change in x to start going positive again. So if I hit the left, I could make the change in x be 2. Yeah. But if I hit the right, if I hit this wall, I want to start getting smaller, because this is the max x, right? This is the biggest x can get. I want x to start getting smaller again. So I may need to make the change in x, that dx, I need to make that negative. So let's make that a -2 here. Right? And then if I hit the top, I want to start getting positive values of dy, so I'm adding to y here. So I'll make dy +1, and then if I hit the bottom, if I'm at the max y, I want y to start getting smaller, so I have to have a negative dy to go in that direction. So let's make this -1. And let's try that, see what happens. And it's bouncing around. Alright, so that's how you can make a bouncing ball in CodeSculptor.